gorgeous? Does that funk have you feeling stuck? Have you questioning your purpose, or even yet having you asking if your best years are behind you? Girl, you have zero obligation to stay in that funk. This podcast is for women who want to get the funk out of here, who want to play bigger, ask for more, and step out of mediocrity. Imagine a life filled with lots of energy, excitement, and filled with spunk instead of that funk. This is the After 40 Unfunk Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Crystal, and I'm ready to talk some shit. Let's go! Hey, girlfriend. So glad to be here with you. I am on a mission to help you break up with your funk and start flirting or dating in your aspiration zone. You know, that zone that gets you amped up. Butterflies start fluttering in your stomach, and your heart feels like it's going to burst from your chest. You're just buzzing all around. Speaking of buzzing, I heard this saying over the weekend, and it cracked me up. So I thought I would share. The saying was, the bee doesn't waste its time explaining to the fly why honey is so much better than shit. Oh girl, this saying is so rich. Think about it. The bee works with such purpose. The hive, the honey, the queen bee, working together with all the bees. It's doing its thing to keep its buzz alive. The fly wandering aimlessly, flying from poop to poop. Ultimately, the bee is in its zone, girl. It doesn't have time to chat with the fly. It doesn't have time to tell the fly which flower is best or why it chooses the flower it does. It's taking action, unbothered, unfazed by that fly. So why are you wasting time trying to share with the fly what you're doing? Remember that these flies like poop. So why are you giving any explanation on why or how you're moving towards your aspiration zone, towards your flowers? That will ultimately contribute to building your hive, to producing the sweet, sweet honey. You are giving them the chance, or giving that fly the chance, or the opportunity to talk you right out of making your own honey, creating your own hive. And let's face it, they can't even grasp the concept of honey. Now let me share this a different way in case you're not getting what I'm laying down, girl. Why do you keep sharing or wasting your time with where you're heading to your aspiration zone, your dreams, to someone who doesn't understand or will never understand why you're going for it? If you truly BEE-lieve, don't give anyone the ability or the opportunity to inject a little doubt into you and keep you from going towards your aspiration zone. Remember, you are the bee, and you got to get it on with the flower. And not only do bees not stop and chat with poop feeders, they also don't have this internal dialogue with themselves. That bee doesn't just sit buzzing and hovering above the flowers, trying to choose which one is better. The bee doesn't sit in analysis paralysis. You know, that moment where when you have options in front of you, you might spend hours, days, years trying to decide the right action to take. This is not the bee. The bee just hops on the flower, does its thing, girl, and moves on to the next. The bee gets all kinds of action, and it also is very likely to produce an amazing outcome. That bee does not overthink which flower it lands on. It gets it on and moves on. And you know the most amazing part? All those flowers are in a much better place after that bee's visit. Not only is that bee impacting flowers, but it is still buzzing towards its purpose. It still has work to do. But let's not minimize how much its action with the flower not only up-levels the flower, makes it more beautiful, it helps it to bloom, but also how it impacts others behind it. Now that flower puts out a new energy. It's confident, radiant, and it shows in its bloom, its attractiveness. Now it's not only beautiful in its own right, but it too now is touching the life of butterflies, hummingbirds, and it can also bring awe to you and me, simply because the bee stopped by and took some action with it. Back to the bee. It's got a hive to build. And do you know who the bee surrounds itself with? Other like-minded bees. Bees that are interested in buzzing in their aspiration zone. The other bees might have different goals or a different purpose, but they are still buzzing towards their aspiration zone. Naturally, that bee's energy is aligned with theirs. No wasting time explaining to the fly or trying to recruit the fly. These bees don't give a you-know-what about the working. They're on a mission. They're working towards their purpose. They're on a different frequency, putting out a different, higher vibration than those flies. And just like that bee, you too need to nurture your bonds and let your connections flourish. The bee knows what's up. And something else we can learn, another thing we can learn from the bee, make it a project. Turn your aspiration zone or your dream, your curiosity, your hobby into a project. Just like the bee's project is to make a hive. Turn your aspiration into a project and set a time limit. I read that a thriving beehive can be built in 1 month. So set your project for 1 month. Let's take a note from the bee. But this project has to be related to your aspiration zone, girl. That can be anything. My first project related to this aspiration zone was this podcast. Here's the thing. You're not done, though, after you complete the project. The bees have many little projects, these micro projects that added up to this macro hive. According to the bee professor, bees build 25 perfectly shaped hexagonal cells per square inch of comb. This is the ideal size to construct a compact hive that houses enough broad and food supplies to allow the colony to survive a winter. In essence, 25 tiny little projects, micro projects, that create this big macro project, the hive. There, we too can buzz toward our dreams. Chunk your dreams, your aspiration, your hobby down into projects. Then take the first step. Then take the second one. Now, when you go to chunk your project or your hive into all these little mini hexagonal shapes to build your hive or into your mini projects, it's important for you to actually break down the projects so that it builds on the prior projects. For instance, if you wanted to build, let's say, your own she shed because you wanted to use it as a painting studio, you would not start the project by building the roof. Project 1 would likely be gathering the materials. Then project 2 would be something like pour the foundation. You get my drift. Each project should build on the previous one. This gives you a time frame and a beginning and end. Not only is it a way for you to measure your progress and hold yourself accountable, but it also gives you an end date so you're able to celebrate. And who loves celebration? Whoop, whoop! I do. And you can celebrate, girl, when it's completed. Do a little dance. And you can get crazy here and make the project for 2 weeks instead of a month. It's up to you. Just don't exceed the month. And after you have completed all your projects, voila, you have your shed. You started a new way of eating. Your new business started. Your new hobby. Basically, all these projects will eventually build your hive. You can have as many micro projects as you want until you reach that final macro built project, your hive. And here's just a little fun fact. Did you know that it is the female bees who produce the wax and construct the entire hive? Now, ladies, does that surprise you? If the female bee can accomplish this amazing goal, you too can build your own hive in your aspiration zone. And don't get me started about the queen bee. Unlike the bee who built the hive here, you actually get to step into your hive, what you created as the queen bee. You get to go from the worker bee to the queen bee. You get to enjoy your sweet reward, the smell of the honey. See your dream manifest into something much bigger than just your hive. It's now a lifeline to make way for other bees to grow. Its yummy fruit is also a delicious treat for animals like the bear and humans too. I don't have to tell you about the vital role a bee plays on Earth, but I want to remind you that you are not much different than the bee. You too have a gigantic role in this world, and you're in a funk because you know this too. But you haven't taken intentional actions towards your aspiration zone, towards the thing that matters most to you. You have to be like that bee and go for it. Jump on the flowers. You are wasting time chatting with the flies, hoping that the fly validates you in some way, hoping the fly says, "Yay, you are right. Honey sounds much better than shit." Whether your mind is the fly or you have a fly friend, buzz onward and get it on with as many flowers as you want. Store up the fuel needed to accomplish your mini projects and watch your mini projects build your hive. lead you into the end zone, help you reach your aspiration zone, and recruit some bee friends along the way. Enjoy getting buzzed together. Let your buzzy actions be the thing that stings your inner critic, your self-doubt, your haters, and your flies. Remember that flies are full of shit. So be like the bee. Focus on your purpose. Enjoy the buzz and stop wasting time trying to convince the flies. Okay, ladies, it's time to go get buzzed. Let's go. This podcast is meant for educational, motivational, and inspirational purposes only. It is not to replace any type of professional or medical help. Before you go, Superwoman, I'd love it if you took a little action for me. Like, subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. Also, share the episode with a friend. And as a thank you, hit up my website to crystalsumner.com, thecrystalsumner.com, to grab free journal prompts. Okay, ladies, now is the time to go on Funk Your Mind, play bigger, and ask for more. Open the door to possibility and cancel playing small. So get up and go.